Olympic champ Brandon Slay. As a wrestler, you were sort of famously known for studying video. How does that translate for you as a coach now? I know that USA has the winner of the match that you were just watching.
So I chose to stay here. The rest of the team went back to the hotel to answer your question, and I watched that whole entire duel, so I could just get my eye on the Ukrainians or the Mongolians. Now we know Ukraine beat Mongolia. That's where we're going to wrestle for the bronze tonight. So I stayed to study that match just to make sure that nothing was different than what we've been watching on video, and just so I could give certain pointers to the rest of our guys as they go out to wrestle Ukraine for the bronze.
How specific do those notes get?
They get real specific. I mean, they're simple as right leg lead, left leg lead, or right collar tie, left collar tie. But there could be a guy, he's got a fireman's, a left side fireman's. He guts, fakes one way, goes to the other. He's got a great leg lace. He tires in the second period. He's really good first period wrestler, but he tends to really kind of labor and get tired in the second period. So just all those guys were kind of different. So it just depends on each particular match. We need to know that information clearly so we can communicate it to each of our American wrestlers. They're prepared fully going into tonight's match.
And how do the guys respond to that? Because I can't imagine that they're all equal video junkies. And there's a lot of new faces here too. Do you have video on everyone that's come here, or are you going in blind in any match?
No, we pretty much have video on most all the guys who wrestle here. I mean, there's some new guys, some countries brought some younger guys that we don't have a lot of video on. But most are guys that are third in the world, second in the world, world champions that have been around for a while. We have video on them and we're prepared. And so to answer your question, some guys, they want to know tons of detail because they want to visualize, they want to be prepared. Some guys, they don't want to know too much because they overthink things. And so just the overanalyzation of it can kind of slow them down. So each of our guys, there's an individualism to each one of them. So and we kind of coach them based on that.
And in looking at the matches, which ones are you excited about with Ukraine?
Well, I think to start right off the bat, I just watched the heavyweight match for Terrell to have a chance to wrestle that guy from Ukraine again, the heavyweight.
It's a rematch from the semis.
He lost to him in the semifinals of the World Championships. So for him to have a chance to wrestle him again would be a great opportunity. We haven't chosen our lineup fully. So, the guy, Oldaltov from Ukraine, he's a world champion. So whether we wrestle Keith Gavin or Clayton Foster, that's going to be a great opportunity for one of our Americans. They're 97 kilos, third in the world. So whether it's JD or Dustin Kilgore, that's going to be a great opportunity for those guys.
When do you make those decisions?
Well, after this match, we want to watch this match, give information to Coach Jones, and we'll decide. Probably, I would say, within about an hour or so, we should have a pretty good idea. We talk to our trainers, how are the guys doing? We talk to the wrestlers, how you feeling, how you're doing. Right. We talk to the athletes, and so we gather all that information up. We analyze Ukraine's strengths and weaknesses, and then we decide as a staff. Coach Jones and Coach Burnett came along. Coach Manning came along. Sam Henson came along. So we got a breadth of experience and knowledge to analyze who we should wrestle.
Are there any disagreements on that? We should go with A or B?
Yeah, there's definitely sometimes there's disagreements, which is why it's great to get a group of coaches together sharing information. And some people think one way, some people think the other way, and that's why Coach Jones, our national team coach, so ultimately it's on him to make the final decision, but he wants to hear what we think. Okay,
now let me ask you this in terms of strategies. There are 8 weights here instead of 7.
Correct.
So you've got a criteria decision when there's 4-4. And last night you had 2 guys without world medals going against standing world champs. So in the criteria process, it's important that they don't get teched. Whereas last year, you might say to Angel, you're down 8-0, go for broke. That's the only way you can win. Now it's more important, whatever you do, shut down, don't give up that last.
And so Angel didn't score any points. I don't think. I think Maribel scored a point. I don't believe. I think it was 0. Terrell didn't score a point. I don't believe so. So those are matches even for Terrell at the end. I would say, he has to win really big for us to have a chance to win the dual meet. So you're better to go down. You're better to go down, I think, get teched and go down swinging than to not do much at all. And guarantee the loss.
Well, I want to ask you about your match with Satiev at the Olympics. It's 3-3, and you obviously had a really detailed game plan going in there. When it's 3-3 and there's 30 seconds left, let's say, and the takedown that you want to hit, are you thinking that you wanted to hit it in overtime because that's sudden victory, or just that's when it happened to present itself?
I think for me, I knew there were certain moves I wanted to master, certain moves I wanted to be able to do on anybody in the world. Mine was my double leg and my gut wrench on top. And I would gut left for the most part, and I would double leg out. So that's what got me there, so to speak. And so I knew that that's what was going to keep me there. That's what was going to help me get my hand raised.
Right.
So I knew that so far the double leg had worked.
Right.
I got to take down the gut wrench had worked.
Yes.
Right. So I was confident in those. And within about the last 30 seconds or so, I didn't want to force a shot, force something and then get counterattacked. So I kind of, in many ways, I kind of just relaxed. I let my energy build up a little bit. And then when you go into overtime, sudden victory overtime, I knew all I had to do was get one hard level change, pop, and if I could hit him, knock him off his feet, I had a chance to win. And that's when back then, we don't do this now, but back then we used to train for overtime. And we'd get really, really tired, wrestle 2 or 3 or 4 matches, then we'd wrestle overtime, first takedown wins. So we prepared ourselves for those moments. Now, there is no overtime. So preparing guys for overtime moments in freestyle doesn't make as much sense.
Right. I mean, making conditioning a factor is sort of a different game now.
Well, right. And I tell guys when people like you ask me about it, and I say freestyle is much more about being a quarter horse. Collegiate wrestling is much more being a thoroughbred, right? So it doesn't matter if you can break the guy at the 10-minute mark or the 15-minute mark. Who cares? Right. You have to score more points than him in 6 minutes, or you don't win.
Right.
Collegiate wrestling, you could get into the 10-minute match, 11-minute match, 12-minute match, right? You got to train guys for sudden victory overtime, ride outs, long matches, grind matches, situations, right? But freestyle, the longest your match will ever be is 6 minutes. So you better be able to score more points to him in 6 minutes, or it doesn't matter.
True. I mean, that said, Metcalf did an excellent job last night of making his conditioning a factor, though, by not wasting time on top. He didn't get the turn, looked at the ref. Let's just keep the pace going this second. Feet,
Which that plays a little bit in situations where maybe like Metcalf. I think his match against I think it was Armenia. We wrestled a lot of duels here. But if a guy starts getting tired and maybe you're not getting the points you want to get, right? It's better off sometimes to not challenge. Like maybe you would win that challenge, but if you challenge and this guy from another country is getting tired, he's getting labored, and you throw the block in over 1 point,
that's seconds of oxygen.
2 minutes to recover. That's a bad challenge as a coach. So even though you're kind of getting screwed, so to speak, as long as the match is within striking distance, it's better just to keep going, don't challenge, because you can break that guy. Right. So that's part of a coaching strategy too. You don't always challenge. It depends on how tired that guy is, right? If it's for 1 point, no big deal. Right. Now, if it's for 4 points, you feel like you really got hosed, that's gonna be a difference maker in the match. You challenge. What if it's 1 point push out difference and the guy's about to fall over because he's so exhausted? We're not going to give him 2 minutes to fully recover. So we have to think about that strategically now.
Right. Yeah, that's something I hadn't even thought of.
Yeah, it's very important.
Well, while we're just talking, in collegiate wrestling, you're talking about the difference. It seems like in the last 20 years, there's been what I would call an evolution of funk, in that you can get guys shooting on each other and dragging legs over each other's chests for 2 minutes and there's no score, whereas you can't do that here. Are you having difficulty at the senior freestyle level changing those habits of funk in collegiate wrestling?
Let's say it's a challenge for us as a coaching staff, and I would say that's why it's really important that we get these 15, 16, 17-year-olds, like the Kyle Snyders, like the Aaron Picos, coming out to the Olympic Training Center, like the Bo Nichols, etc., coming out there spending time in our freestyle environment, learn to wrestle our 26-year-old best guys in the country, to start planting those seeds of staying in great position early. We start to get them thinking that way now, and they can take that into college, maybe stick with the good foundations of wrestling, controlling the center, controlling the tie, controlling the center, controlling the tie, exploding the shots. If we can keep them focused on those techniques in college, then after they get out of college, specifically Kyle Snyder and Bo Nichols, Aaron's not going to wrestle college, it's a different thing. He's really getting locked in on freestyle. For the rest of our guys, if we get them focused on those, just that great foundational technique, controlling the tie, controlling the center, then when they get out of college, then they're ahead of the game. It's easier for us as coaches to get them prepared to be world Olympic champions. Versus some guy that spent 5 years diving to ankles, rolling all over the place. Anytime he had the lead, he went and put himself on the edge. So when guys shot him, he would just always let him down. Right, you get those guys now in freestyle, then you almost have to reprogram the whole entire mindset to get them prepared to beat these guys. Because you watch this tournament this weekend, these guys, they know how to wrestle freestyle.
Absolutely.
Why? Because that's all they wrestle is freestyle. So we as coaches, we've got to start getting our young talent our cadet world champions, junior world champions, we need to start preparing them now to become senior world champions. Even if they're 15 or 16, we got to do that now.
And how much do you look at an event like this here in the U.S. as an opportunity to get people excited about wrestling at the senior level freestyle?
Well, we do our best. I mean, you've been around probably wrestling for a while. We do our best to market this event. We do our best to get people to come out to this event. But in many ways, Americans in general, they're addicted to folk style wrestling. Yeah. They just love folk style wrestling. They want to come to the NCAA tournament. They want to go to state tournaments. When it comes down to having, we got the 10 best teams on the whole planet here wrestling, over these last 2 days. And so in many ways, it's unfortunate because it's almost perceived like it's a different sport. And so that's the challenge we got to keep overcoming. And we're going to keep folk working hard to do it, but we got to get people fired up about freestyle wrestling. And
well, you're doing
trying. We're going to keep doing it. And for the most part, what gets people excited about it is winning. So the onus is on us. We need to win this tournament. We don't need to get wrestle for third. We need to beat Iran. We need to become the best team. You become the best team in the world. It's interesting. More people probably want to come out and watch it. So as coaches, that's my job. Coaches, our job is to become the World Cup champions, win the World Championships. We haven't won the Worlds since 1995, right? Yep. So 19 years ago. So we have some work to do as coaches, as Team USA, to get America back on track. But you watched last night, we lost a close match to the best team in the world.
You could have won 6-2.
We could have won that duel. We could have won that duel. And we didn't, and so we still clearly got some work to do. But we lost last year in the World Cup, I think 6-1. They whooped us in the duel in New York City. So we've narrowed and closed that gap.
Sure, and this is their best team.
This is their absolute best team. And so we've narrowed that gap, and we'll continue to close that gap. But I think in Rio, some of their guys are going to be a little bit more older.